So the other thing that's really important to kind of set the scene and help you think about, considering learning disabilities when you're working with people is that they're very much not visible. So I did a Google search to check whether this was still the case when I was putting these slides together, or whether representativeness may have developed online. But if you Google search adults with learning disabilities, you almost exclusively get pictures of adults with Down syndrome, so very physical characteristics that are very visible, but that isn't at all representative of the broad range of individuals who have learning disabilities. So I was thinking about some of the people that I've kind of worked with or diagnosed when I worked in learning disability services prior to coming to Framework. And they include the kind of the 6'3" man who likes to wear a high vis jacket because people sort of respect him and leave him alone. They assume he's a workman. They don't, he's much less vulnerable. They don't kind of hassle him. And he can kind of fit in much more easily. They also include a father of 3 who are diagnosed after his partner, long-term partner and mother of his children, got a job as a support worker in a supported living accommodation for people with learning disabilities. And she said the penny started to drop about some of the difficulties he had as she worked with people and learnt more about learning disabilities. And she'd done a lot of the kind of household chores. She did all of the reading. She knew that he struggled with reading, but she offered so much support, and they'd just never assumed that he had a learning disability. And it was only when she learned about them that it kind of clicked into place. Also older adults who maybe have lived with their parents for a long time often come into contact with services for the first time when their parents are aging, or get ill and are no longer able to care for them. That sometimes is where it becomes apparent that somebody's really struggling and can't function independently. And that includes people who have jobs. There's no reason people with learning disabilities can't have jobs. And I think particularly for older people, they may have got jobs when the kind of employment context was quite different. People, and in local and more rural communities, people maybe kind of supported people that weren't doing so well to get a job, and they stayed in those jobs for a long time. And again, that's part of kind of people not assuming that there is a problem there, but actually if some of the structures around the person, like parental support or partner support, get removed, it becomes very quickly apparent that they can't cope very well on their own. It includes people who are alcohol dependent or use other substances, and it includes people who take pride in their appearance. It can include people who are very verbally competent. So when we do IQ assessments, one of the things we look for is kind of verbal abilities and comprehension. And sometimes people can score reasonably highly on that, and they're really able to mask some of their cognitive difficulties, either by kind of agreeing, or if you ask, do you understand? They say yes, but they don't really understand. And if you try and test it a little bit more, it's clear that they don't. So I think I really wanted to make this point because it's easy to rule out learning disabilities because people have a job or look a particular way, or or it's never been raised before as a possibility. But it's really important that we sort of challenge those assumptions if we've got some of the kind of worries that we'll come on to talk about that might highlight the potential for learning disabilities. And in